Hi, welcome to Find Your Flock. I'm your host, Dr. Sandra Clavijo from the Schaefer School of Engineering and Science at Stevens. If you're unsure about which engineering major to choose, you're in the right place. Each episode, I chat with students and recent grads about their favorite classes, internships, professors, and more, helping you discover the path that fits you. Hi, today's guest is a recent alumni from our physics department pursuing a Ph.D. Welcome to Find Your Flock, Sophia.
Thanks, Sandra. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. We always like to get started asking our interviewees a little bit about themselves and what you studied when you were at Stevens.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess you gave the intro I would give for myself, which is that I'm Sophia. I'm currently pursuing a PhD in physics at CUNY Graduate Center. I would say that I'm an endlessly curious person, which is why I chose to study physics, and also maybe endlessly stubborn, which is why I chose to stay in physics. Besides physics, I'm also really interested in music, which pretty much directly led me to my path at Stevens, which was a Bachelor of Science in Physics and a minor in Music and Technology.
Oh, how excellent. Did you always know you wanted to study physics? What was your favorite class in high school?
I didn't really know that I always wanted to study physics. It was kind of something I stumbled upon in life. My favorite class in high school probably was maybe before physics, it was like French or something like that. I was more of a humanities person for a long time. And then I took a physics class and it really just lit up my brain. I was so fascinated by this different way of viewing the world and just kind of bypassing all the facades we see in everyday life of describing things and having this more like rigorous quantitative way to understand the universe.
That's amazing. And I think that really segues into some of our listeners may not know what exactly is, physics when we say we're studying physics. What are we studying?
Yeah, so physics is kind of a loaded term in the sense that a lot of people just think like physics equals really hard math and really complicated stuff. But it's kind of simple in what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to understand what are the natural laws and principles that govern the universe and how it works. And we like to study things like motion and energy and really just get to the basics of what underlies like these phenomena that we see in nature.
That's an excellent description. So what was your favorite class at Stevens?
My favorite class at Stevens, that's a really good question. I think that I have two answers, one for like the physics side and one for the music side, probably. So for physics, I think it was astrophysics and cosmology with Ting Lu. Like there were kind of two levels of the course, and I got to the second level and I loved that class. It was really, really fascinating to talk more about in depth about like cosmology, and cosmology delves into like the beginnings of the universe and how the universe has evolved over time. And we take all these measurements from space and try to like piece together this evolution of the universe story. So that was awesome to really like look at that in depth with her. And she was just such a great professor. Like I always enjoyed her classes, but she did a phenomenal job with getting us to really think in depth about what we were learning and to ask the hard questions that we are not used to asking. And then on the music side, I loved Will Stackpole's class, composition. I never took a composition class for music before, but I was always really curious about what would happen if I did. And it really didn't disappoint. He did a great job with teaching us how to like develop musical ideas and to turn them into a full piece. And at the end of the course, we did get to all like create our own full musical piece, which was great. It was really rewarding to do that.
That's awesome. I love how you were able to take, classes in both and to culminate, music into a minor. I always think it's so fun, all the ways that you can pair majors and minors and interests. And I think, for some of our listeners, I think that's helpful to understand like the different kind of pairings. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. So hardest class? What was the hardest class at Stevens and how did you get through it?
Yeah, so there were a couple that were really hard, but I think that the one that takes the cake for me was math methods in physics. Yeah, that was a really challenging class. And I I guess I got through it with a friend because it was kind of like we were both in that class, and I think we were in a different class at the same time together. And he was like, we should study and we should just help each other out with this. So that was great to have someone else in the class with me that we could just bounce ideas off of each other. There were nights where I remember I had a club meeting to go to. We were quickly like scribbling things down before the club meeting started. And that was, I would definitely recommend that for any course at Stevens that you're struggling with. Try to find a buddy there who will help you because really you learn better together. And that's something that took me some time to figure out.
That's awesome. So what extracurriculars were you running late to? Tell me a little bit about the clubs and how they shaped your experience.
Yeah, definitely. So I was very involved with Stevens Christian Fellowship at Stevens, and that was a really wonderful experience. That was pretty much my main club involvement. I was like in group chats for other things too, but I was mostly with SCF. And that was so helpful for me to have that sense of community there. We all got there because of our faith, but then we bonded over other things too. Um, I actually served as secretary, then president for the organization as well. And it was really rewarding. I feel like having that leadership position also reinforced to me that leading is not so much about being the top person like on the pyramid, but it's really about serving the people you're around. So it was just a wonderful experience. Everyone really encouraged each other there, really uplifted me a lot to be there and to have that space that wasn't just only academics. It was revolving around something deeper for all of us.
That's amazing. I love that. I know I looked over your resume and you had a ton of exposure to undergraduate research throughout your undergraduate career. Can you tell us about your REUs, which is research experiences for undergraduate, and kind of
Yeah.
how that shaped your educational experience?
Yeah. So I sort of applied on the fly to these things. They're this NSF program that allows undergrads to go to a separate institution, usually another school, but it could also be something totally different, like a lab. And it gives you just the opportunity to try out research with someone in some particular field of science for a summer. So I think it's like 10 weeks, the programs. And I ended up applying to maybe, I don't know, like five or six during 1 year of my undergrad. And actually, I don't even totally remember anymore, but I applied to one with the Museum of Natural History, which I always loved going there as a kid. So I was like, how fun would this be if I got to do this? And I got in to my surprise. I really didn't expect to get into that, but it was a fantastic experience. I got to work with Eve Armstrong, who was an amazing mentor. She just took me under her wing for that whole summer, and we worked on some astrophysics research, looking at these really cool particles that I never like knew existed. They're called neutrinos, and trying to figure out what kind of information we could get from these, what they could tell us about the creation of like heavy elements in the stars. So that was a fantastic experience. It exposed me to coding. I had already done a little bit of coding at Stevens, but it really allowed me to like take anything I had learned and put it into use. And then the other REU was at Rutgers with Ron Gilman, and that was in nuclear physics. And again, it just really sharpened my understanding of coding and how science works, and kind of it helped me figure out like where I wanted to be in science, kind of steer me in the right direction. Because through those experiences, I got a feel for what it's like to work in a research group and like what the daily life of a scientist is.
That's awesome. So I was going to ask you what a daily life of a PhD student is like for you. Right now, you are working on your PhD in physics with some applications in cosmology, or maybe you tell
Yes,
us a
yeah.
little bit more about your application areas and what a typical day looks like for you, and where like, do you get up and go to work, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so I think the life of a PhD student is pretty wild in the sense that it's not very structured in the way that a normal job is. Like in a regular job, you kind of know, okay, I'm starting and I start at 9, I go till 5, and these are the tasks I have to complete. A PhD is way more loose, so it's kind of a choose your own adventure every day, except for when you have classes or meetings. So for me, the first 2 years, I've had to take classes, and that adds some structure to my day. So sometimes I get up and the day looks like just a full day of classes and doing homework or whatever the classes entail. Other days I'm teaching and just teaching a lab and grading, giving students feedback, which I find really fun. And then other days I'm actually working again out of the Museum of Natural History with my research group and just spending whole days like kind of coding things up and looking at papers that were released, trying to come up with ideas, new science ideas that we can apply our research to. So it's really different day by day. But I think that when you get the chance to do research, that's why we're all here doing a PhD. So that's really what I love about it.
That's awesome. I feel like in the last couple of years, our undergraduate academics office has hired somebody, Andreas, and they've been working really hard at helping students apply for those REUs because of experiences that you have shared. So I feel like that's always it's always so nice when students can have that experience. I think looking back, what advice would you give to a current first year student who's, uncertain about choosing a major and they're, you know, good at physics and math and they're at Stevens. Like what what kind of advice could you give to those students?
I definitely understand because I was there. So I would be really like empathetic first of all and say, I know it's really hard. Like if you have so many different interests, how do you choose one? But I think for me, what really helped was thinking about first what really lights me up and just going over my past experiences, what I'm good at, but also thinking about what offers me a good challenge and what is the thing that if I didn't try it now, I would regret it. So for me, physics really was that thing. I knew it would be a hard major, and I was a little concerned about it from the get-go. I was like, am I cut out for this really? Will I make it? But I knew that also if I didn't try it right away, if I didn't start at some point early in my Stevens career, it might pass me by the opportunity to do the major and to take all those classes. So I would say to think about like what is the thing that's challenging. You know that the coursework will be hard, but if you don't give it a shot, you know you'll regret it.
That's awesome advice. I love that. And we always like to end, give us your best pitch. Why should someone choose physics? Besides Ting Lu, she's amazing.
She is.
And such a joy to have classes from and to work with. But besides Ting Lu, why should somebody choose physics?
I think you should choose physics because what other field lets you really explore the fundamental laws of the universe and get past all the noise of everyday life to say, how does this work? Like, how does the universe function? And to be curious really allows you to be curious when you're a physics major and to delve deep into things that you didn't even realize were there that are going on every day, like the physical processes happening around us. So I think that's an amazing reason to be a physics major.
That sounds like a good reason to me, and I think I'm going to encourage my 8-year-old because she is always asking how everything works.
Yeah, be a physics major.
Perfect. So that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank Sophia so much for joining us on Find Your Flock and helping us understand a little bit about physics major and learning about another kind of career opportunity. If you're feeling lost or confused, just know you're not alone. That's why we're here and we have this podcast. Please like or share, subscribe with your friends. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me.